Okay. So here is the updated PowerPoint, updated for um, the last World Cup where France won. So 6 teams. You're three from Argentina's won twice, Brazil's won 4 times, Uruguay's won twice, um, Italy's won 3 times. I think France has won five and or France has won two and Germany five. I'm not sure exactly. Are responsible for 19 out of the 21 winners. England and Spain being the other two. Okay, so it's not like a lot of different teams. I mean, I was really rooting for Croatia, and incidentally, I had a trip to that part of the world, and that year was actually scheduled to be in Croatia during the World Cup final. And then I had to have emergency eye surgery, and I had to delay the trip for a year. But I could have almost been in Croatia. I mean, it would have just been insane. But the World Cup's a lot of fun to watch. It's just so politically interesting and relevant, and it really is about sort of. I always root for the United States first. Obviously, I like England because I lived in England for a year and kind of got really interested in Arsenal, the team that you saw their song as the very last of the YouTube clips that you watched. But then I always root for. After that, I always root for South Africa, South America, and Africa over European teams because I just think there's something so satisfying to former colonies, colonial nations who were sort of pillaged for, at the very least decades, if not hundreds of years, by these teams from Europe, and it's so satisfying to see teams from Africa or South America prevail. I just mentioned that they have these chants that there's different types of support. People take their soccer club support very, very seriously. I like to say I'm an Arsenal fan, but I don't really follow club soccer all that much. I get kind of interested when they have the where they have all the club teams, getting to these finals and then playing against each other. Sometimes I'll watch that. But some people will like beat you up if you show up. I mean, they have to put these people in certain sections. They'll sell sections for Arsenal, sections for Manchester United, and then they'll have some unallied sections, so that they don't actually share a border with each other because they might start fighting. Hooliganism. Okay, people fighting before matches, fighting after matches. At one point they put all these kind of like public urinal places outside in England, outside of stadiums, because they wanted people to start urinating in these urinals rather than just peeing on the streets because they're drunk and mad and angry and whatever. National soccer leagues, I just mentioned those a little bit, vie for the world's talent. 3 of the last 4 World Cup winners. Now, I guess it's 3 of the last 5. No, it's 3 of the last 4, I guess. Feature leagues that were highly competitive due to high salaries. Okay. The 4th being the English Premier League. So, Spain has La Liga. England has the Premier League. Germany, it's the Bundes something or another. Italy. I mean, and this is beneficial for the world because what they do is they'll take somebody from a country that doesn't have a strong soccer program, like let's say Costa Rica or and then that person will play in this league. They'll have their play elevated, and then they'll become a star. There was a guy named Arno Cubayas or something like that. He was Peruvian, and Peru just, I mean, they never had a chance really on the international stage, but they had this one transcendent player, and Cubayas, and same thing with the first real Argentinian superstar. I can't remember what his name was. He actually was never allowed to play for the Argentinian team. This was like in the 50s because he essentially moved to Spain and played for Madrid. But he he became a superstar once he moved to a better league. But what these leagues also do is they develop a lot of because there's more Italians in the Italian league than anywhere else. There's more Spanish in the Spain league. And so really what it does is it has a downward, it has an uplifting effect on their national team. So it's no surprise that Italy, Spain, Germany, and England have been real world players in soccer. So the Mount Rushmore, there is one American on here. Certainly Pele, one of the first, probably the first global black athlete. Okay. A little bit before Muhammad Ali, who would have been the second. But he was Brazilian of African descent and was the first superstar in soccer, sort of first modern soccer. And then, a little while later, you have Diego Maradona. He's probably the best athlete I've ever seen on TV. I've never seen him live, but the speed, the power, and the balance that guy has, if you watch some of his old goals, it doesn't even look possible. He was Lionel Messi before, decades before Lionel Messi. He was also our Argentinian. And you have to put a goalie in here. I don't know too much about the two goalies that are sort of agreed to be the best of all time, Dino Zoff and Gordon Banks. But when I looked it up, I think that Dino Zoff certainly had a superior international career, which is why he gets put up here. And then Mia Hamm, And yes, I think Gabby Wambach was a better player. For those of you that know female American soccer, women's soccer. But Mia Hamm was first, okay, and really brought a spotlight to the sport. And, she was sort of like the female version of Diego Maradona: speed, power, grace, and equipoise, just balance. She could kind of be off balance and still kick the ball in the goal and put it wherever she wanted. She's not yet 50, it was sort of late 90s, 2000s when she was, whereas all these other guys were from earlier times. So that's the Mount Rushmore, okay? And the men's soccer on the international scale has never really broken through. There's been some good moments, and I'll show you one of those a little bit later. But they've never they have won a few tournaments, but never the World Cup or the Olympics. They've never gotten to the semifinals or threatened in any significant way. The women, on the other hand, have done quite well. I think they've won four World Cup titles, maybe 5, and they won the Olympics a bunch of times. They are the predominant power in women's soccer. And then finally, I'll just say a little bit about one moment. It has nothing to do with American history. This is called El Mano de Dios, or the Hand of God. And this is where in the I believe it was the 1986 World Cup, if I remember correctly, Maradona went into the box to try to get to a ball. And the ball was passed in, and it was too high for him to hit it. And so he just put up his hand and hit it, did it really quickly, and the ball went into the net. And the British were angry, and these guys are cheaters, and this, that, the other thing. And the animosity, there was context to this. They still don't like each other today. I mean, whenever they meet each other, people are worried, are they gonna get in fights? That type of thing, because they robbed us, and they actually met in the semifinals 4 years later, and the Argentinians won again. But no. Did they? No. The Germans met them. They were hoping to meet, and the Germans knocked off the British, so they never met. But there was context to this. It wasn't just a sort of a breaking of the rules. In 4 years earlier, they'd always kind of disliked each other. They played a match in 1966 in the semifinals to go to the finals in 1966 World Cup, and there was violence. They were violent against each other, particularly violence from Argentina to Britain, and then the British coach called them animals afterwards, which was a real problem, kind of caused this international scene. So there's already kind of this animosity, and then the two nations went to war over some tiny little islands in the subantarctic region down near the Antarctica, where all there basically is sheep. Okay, and I'm not even sure why they went to war over these islands, but they did. And Britain won the war, and a bunch of Argentinians were killed. And 4 years later, this was the Argentinian revenge. So it's one of the most controversial moments in the history of soccer. It's called the Hand of God, El Mano de Dios, and just kind of an example of how politics in soccer takes on a very long life. It has a very long half-life. It takes a long time for these animosities to kind of blow over. And here we are. This is like 35 years ago. The British and the Argentinians still at each other's throats over soccer. Okay, so let me just show. One thing is about sports is it doesn't matter. I guarantee you, there's Republicans and Democrats sitting next to each other in some of these shots you're about to see. There's people who have extremely different worldviews than others right next to each other. There might even be people that have certain animosities regarding race or ethnicity or class or whatever. But, when you get together and watch sports, it doesn't matter what your background differences are or what your animosities are or what your hang-ups are. Sports is a time to come together, okay? And here's a sort of a compilation of the world's reaction. It's really the reaction of Americans to Landon Donovan's game-winning goal against Algeria in the World Cup. Quite a few years ago. I can't remember when this World Cup was. 2006, maybe? 2006, yeah. And what happened was the United States either needed a win or a draw to get through against this grossly overmatched Algerian team that was not expected to win a single game or even tie a single game. Just not a great team. And the United States had a fairly good team that year. And so here they were essentially at the end of the game with just a few seconds left at the end of the match. And they needed one goal. Otherwise, they would be eliminated from the further rounds of play. Okay, you get the idea. Let me actually show you the actual goal. It was kind of a cool goal too, because you see them start to react and then they erupt because there was a shot on goal that was deflected. So people were all excited, then kind of disappointed, and then it was shot in by Landon Donovan, who's actually, I believe, from Corona, California, on a rebound. Okay, and apparently this was the 2010.
Opportunity missed. Howard beaten. Altidore just trying to thread one through and gets a bit of luck here as well. Bradley carries it on. Very good challenge from Yair. Still not away. Gomez! Gomez for a second time offside.
So they have all these like near misses.
Clint Dempsey standing in an offside position.
Now what offsides means, incidentally, is that this guy here with the ball, you notice how when the ball came into him, he was already beyond the last guy in green, which meant that he's offsides, and it isn't allowed. So last gasp
position. Here's Altidore. Little push and a chase. Bruguera's back there. Altidore just about gets it in. Here's a chance for Dempsey, and again.
So they have all these kind of like near misses, you know.
Hit the upright with the first.
It doesn't look like it's meant to be.
With the second, and you wonder, is it going to be one of those days for the United States? 4 minutes for one of these two sides to try and grab some glory here.
And what happens in soccer is you have two 45-minute halves, and then at the end of the game they add a little bit of extra time so that people can't pretend like they're injured, and you know, so they basically take up all the sort of the time that was where the play was stopped, and they bundle it together in what's called extra time. And when the extra time is over, that's it.
Have a winner. Look how much space here for Bruguera. And heading back and Howard right on his line. Saifi with the best chance his side have had for an awful long time. And now they're stretched at the back. The US have numbers. Altidore squares it. Dempsey's missed it. Donovan has it. From hope, there is glory. It's Landon Donovan. So often the inspirational figure was the.
And so that's the goal that put the United States through to the next round, where I think they promptly lost to Ghana. But you know, it was a wonderful moment. I remember watching on TV and just being really excited. And I was by myself, but you could see that all these people watching it in bars and up on big screens and whatnot. That this was a kind of it's a moment of community, despite all of our division. It's a moment of solidarity. You know, where you can kind of forget about politics, and you know, you as I mentioned, soccer is the most political of sports, I think, but we can still wrap ourselves up in the beauty and the pageantry of the game and the aesthetics of the game and the sort of the joy of winning and of unexpected things happening, and that's why I show that particular clip, because I think it does a really good job of demonstrating it. And so that's soccer. It's not an American, you know, it's growing in America, but the lack of, you know, it's constantly moving, so it's hard to have commercials. So what they'll often do is they'll put, you know, like have a little commercial below or side to side commercial, and they'll, you know, mute and they just hope that there's not something that happens at that moment. But you know, you look at, you know, kids want to play soccer. They don't want to play basketball until they get to about the 4th, 5th, 6th grade, something like that. I mean, soccer is the sort of the most fundamental of sports that you see kids wanting to compete. But we just haven't, as a nation, it hasn't broken through. But I do think that it is on its way, in part due to its popularity amongst people of Latin American background, who constitute the fastest growing demographic in the United States. Because it is such an international game, and so that you know, we get to see it. I mean, I get really cool international soccer 4 times a year. Well, actually 3 times a year. Once during the Olympics, where I you know, male and female soccer, and then the Women's World Cup and the Men's World Cup. So there, you know, there's plenty of kind of soccer there to be watched by Americans, but you know, for whatever reason, our soccer leagues aren't that competitive with the ones in Europe. The whole advertising thing, we place our focus on athletes, and American soccer has been just try to outrun everybody, and you know, this type of thing. Whereas the Germans and the Spanish and the Italians and the French, you know, who are really good, and you know, Argentinians and Brazilians, it's more about pinpoint passing back and forth, probing for an opening, passing the ball back, passing it over, and then all of a sudden you strike. It's not about just trying to sprint everybody down the field. So that's another kind of limitation in American soccer, is we tend to view it like we would basketball. Bigger, stronger, faster athlete is going to be the best in soccer. In reality, it's this more cerebral pinpoint passing and kind of being able to see the entire field and probing for weaknesses that is the superior game. And that is soccer.